Humans have always been fascinated by music. From cavemen singing and drumming in their caves to modern-day electric dance music, there's something about the art that fascinates us as a society. But what about this craft is it that we love? Sound is made up of waves that travel through the air. The frequency of these vibrations determine the pitch of the sound, and the height of the waves determine the volume. Our brain hears these vibrations and converts them into sounds that we hear in our brain. This is how humans hear music. Because music's not a stable medium and that cannot be sustained in the natural world, humans had to be smart to record and play back sounds. Before 1877, there was no real way to do this. However, in 1877, a young inventor by the name of Thomas Edison came up with the idea for a phonograph, which was a contraption that used a thin fabric diaphragm and a needle to record vibrations into a tinfoil cylinder. This device could then recreate sounds by playing it in reverse and making noise out of the vibrations. This was the first time in human history that people were able to record and play back sound. Later developments in science that allowed for easier recording were acid baths and steam presses, which allowed for easy duplication of flat disks. Electronic microphones allowed for louder and clearer recording quality, and computer systems were later made to record, mix, master, and produce music.
In the late 1800s, recorded music took another turn when the idea of the record player was introduced. It started off with the phonograph, which used a tinfoil cylinder to produce sound. It moved to the gramophone, which was just a higher-tech version of the phonograph, and ultimately moved to the record player, which is the same model that we still sometimes know and use today. At around the same time, the radio was invented. This had a great impact on society because it allowed people to listen to live music from the comfort of their own homes, rather than listen to pre-recorded music on vinyl. Granted, the sound quality wasn't great on either, but it was still a big improvement. In 1964, cassette tapes came to be. This was a big deal because it allowed people to play music portably and they could just take it wherever they wanted. It was also a big deal because it allowed people to record themselves and share their own music with their fans without having to be signed to a record label. Recorded music took its biggest turn in the 1980s when music transitioned from being shared at a physical level to being shared at a digital level, with the invention of the compact disc, more commonly known as the CD. Once music could be recorded at a digital level, it completely took off. In 1990, the MP3 was invented, and then 5 years after, the internet came to be, and with the internet came streaming websites, mostly like YouTube, we would use to listen to music. And then, not long after that, iPods and iTunes came around, and that was so great because we could have whatever music we wanted just at the tip of our fingers. However, we still needed to buy our music. It wasn't until 2008 when streaming websites like Spotify, SoundCloud, etc. came to be. With that, we could listen to whatever music we wanted, completely for free. All in all, it is crucial to acknowledge the importance of music notation and music recording. Without it, we couldn't have the music teaching resources we depend on, such as textbooks and websites. We couldn't have the streaming websites we use to listen to free music and hear new music, and music itself just wouldn't have the same complexity as it does today.
Before the first inventions of sound recording and audio production technology, an avid listener of music would have to either learn and play a song they wanted to hear, or pay heavy amounts of money to hear professionals play in their concert halls. That changed after Thomas Edison, yes, that one, invented a device called the phonograph in 1877. A phonograph is a tinfoil cylinder in which the tinfoil has undulations that mimic sound waves. As the cylinder rotates, a stylus moves over the undulations and vibrates a diaphragm on the machine. The first song produced was a terrible version of Mary Had a Little Lamb.
The little lamb is sweet and white as snow, and everywhere that Mary went, the lamb was sure to go.
Edison never considered this as an important invention, at least not as important as the light bulb. Along came Emil Berliner, who patented the first gramophone between 1877 and 1893. This adaptation of the phonograph featured the first turntable for disc recordings, as well as an amplifying cone so that sound was amplified. This truly started an industry, especially after the discs were made with a finished wax. The first celebrity recordings were made in 1901, featuring the Imperial Russian Opera. Ensembles would play directing their sound to a recording horn, which would then start recording the process on a wax tablet. Wax would have to be replaced if a song ran for too long. Jazz soon took over the recording scene in the 1910s and the 1920s and popularized the record charts. After World War I, gramophones and recordings had to compete with the radio, which produced a better sound than the mechanically made gramophone sound. Along came the Bell Telephone Company, who, after inventing the telephone, founded the Western Electric Recording System in 1924, which revolutionized recorded sound. In this process, music was recorded and printed via telephone lines and electricity. This allowed music to be put to film in the 1930s and 1940s. Although first invented in 1899, during World War II, magnetic recording, or tape recording, was finished and perfected. This medium was used to record until the development of digital recording. Magnetic recording revolutionized and simplified the recording process, allowing musicians to record individual parts and multi-track others. Les Paul and Mary Ford use this method very often. Digital recording in 1975 revolutionized portable music. Contrary to having everyone meet around the gramophone or radio to hear songs, families could listen to music individually through CD players, cassette tapes, and portable radios. Digital recording transferred to answering machines, toys, and, most notably, smartphones.
Art is a very broad term. It covers music, dance, theater, fine art, and even literature. Now, music also affects different art forms. Ever seen a dancer dance without music? Looks a little weird. The music helps the dancer connect with the movement and the song, but also the emotions brought along with it. And so, those emotions are then portrayed through the dancer to the audience. Movies, when they were first produced, didn't have words or anything like that. It was only music and their performance. So, that led to when words were later added in, movies had soundtracks which help move the story along and add a certain amount of suspense and emotion into the movie. Now, the fine arts are always influenced by music, even when they're not. The 20th century painter Marc Chagall had used music to influence his art. He would listen to music from his hometown in Russia, Bach and Mozart. And when you look at his paintings, you can see his characters are either playing music, dancing, their movements and the colors are all reflective of music. So many people suffer from synesthesia, which is they can see music. And so many of them will draw or paint the music that they see to show the world. Most people don't know this, but literature is a form of art. Now, many writers have used music to help them create their characters. Shakespeare did this a lot with Hamlet. If you read the play, you'll see that his words have a sort of musical quality and flow to them that many other characters don't. Even the opposite is true. Many artists will compose music based on literature. Again, with Shakespeare, Tchaikovsky, while reading Romeo and Juliet, wrote the Romeo and Juliet overture based on play. Creative writers will listen to music that has the same emotional output that they are trying to elicit from their characters. This will make them more human in our eyes. Also, writers will use music as a way to block out the rest of the world. Ask basically any college student what they're listening to when they're writing their paper. Most of the time it's the music of their choice. Many authors will use music to help them get in focus. Studies have shown that if an author listens to the same genre, artist, or album, then they will train their brains into focusing on only writing when that album, genre, artist is played. Professional authors will do this. If you don't believe me, just ask Dr. Cook.
Hey, just so you guys know, the thing that's been playing in all of our transitions, it's called the lick. The lick is a common musical thing that apparently all jazz and even some non-jazz musicians know.